Good evening, everyone. Namaste. We are on day 4 of our FDP on Indic Local Governance, which is being facilitated in collaboration with Sri Guru Tegh Bahadur Khalsa College, Sri Anandpur Sahib, Punjab, India. And as all of you already know, since the past 3 days, we are exploring the indigenous roots of Indic local self-governance systems and mechanisms, especially with a focus on the village life and village systems in India, on the tradition of local self-governance, on gram panchayats and other concepts. At NLD, we are thankful to the collaborating institution, Sri Guru Tegh Bahadur Khalsa College, the convener of this FDP, Dr. Jasveer Singh, principal of the college, coordinator, Dr. Gurpreet Kaur Madam, who is the in charge of the IKS cell, coordinator, Professor J.P. Singh Sir and Professor Sharandeep Kaur Madam. And of course, many thanks to our esteemed resource person, Tanya ji, research consultant at Brahat, for once again accepting NLD's invitation to facilitate this FDP after the Arthashastra FDP that she has done with us, and for taking us through deep insights on Indian local governance systems. So a quick recap of what we have covered in the last 3 days. We started this FDP with a very basic understanding of Indic local governance systems and how our ancient scriptures and knowledge repositories have mention of these systems. On the second day, we discussed the mention and the evidences and discourse on these governance systems in our Itihasa and Dharma Shastras. And yesterday, Tanya ji spoke about local customs and practice in the context of Indic local governance. Today, she will be talking about contemporary governance institutions, I believe especially post-independence, and she will draw a comparison with ancient Indic local governance system. And I think in this session, we may get our answers to a lot of questions, because whenever we are talking about our ancient systems, we tend to compare them with our modern systems. We tend to talk about strengths and limitations. So I'm sure that a lot of our queries in that line will be answered today. So over to you, Tanya ji, for today's session. Just a moment. Yeah. Yeah, we can start.
Yeah, thank you, Niti ji. Yes, I think a lot of comparison has already been done in the last 3 days. Today we'll look at and also much of the strengths and weaknesses. I don't think when I put across any kind of presentation, it generally doesn't fit a fixed format, is what I try to follow, where it will bring in different examples. The same thing you will see today as well. The framework of the Panchayati Raj institutions, which came in the 1990s through the constitutional amendment bills that were brought in, as I had mentioned in the earlier sessions also, this structure and framework is a 3-tier structure, as we know today, which is the Gram Panchayat, the Taluk or the block level, and then you have the Zilla Parishad, and then you have the state government, and then it goes on to the central government. This is what is based on the Ashoka Mehta committee report and also the Balwant Rai Mehta committee reports. Now, before I start sharing my PPT, I will share the slides at the opportune moment. We'll combine it with a verbal and also some slides where it is needed. So I mentioned a book earlier in one of my earlier sessions by T. Ramakrishna. This was taken out during the colonial period in the 1900s only. T. Ramakrishna was somebody who had been a very successful, entrepreneur, a very successful, kind of a historian, researcher, etc. And this person came from, a background that was village oriented, and he was constantly very, demotivated or kind of put down by the kind of representation that the villages were being given by the colonial state, and also by the misconceptions that many Indians also were putting out without understanding the villages, without knowing it, without seeing it, just looking and reading, certain texts. So you see the dedication towards, the village of people who come from the village, become successful, educated, etc., etc. Some go and practice law, some become statesmen, some become, you see in the Constituent Assembly also, there are many who have come up from the villages, even most of our forefront mainstream freedom fighters. So T. Ramakrishna writes this book, which is known as Life in an Indian Village. I think it's available on Amazon and even archives or any internet, resource which keeps a repository of older texts. So he got Grant Duff, who was a colonial officer, to write the foreword to this book because he had developed good relations with the state machinery and all, etc. at that time. So Grant Duff's forward is very, very, insightful on what he mentions in this. He writes, the reader will see that no good can be affected for these people, but only much harm by introducing European methods of government, foreign to their characters and conditions. What we can do is to enable these myriad little worlds to live in peace, instead of being perpetually liable to be harried and destroyed by every robber or petty tyrant who could pay a handful of scoundrels to follow him. Now, who does he refer to by this tyrant or a robber? You can, your guesses are open, whether it is a systematic introduction of these people, or whether it is, the from the local side, it cannot come. That is barred by the people themselves. But if it is institutionalized by the, the government setup, then you can refer to these later uh, two epithets that he has mentioned, robber and petty tyrant. So what does this quote mean? The quote very simply means that Grant Duff, the colonial, officer, is saying that there can be no good that can come out by imposing European methods or foreign methods of government on these people, and because it's foreign to their kind of upbringing, their culture, their characters, their conditions also. So let them live in peace, and instead of perpetually harassing them and, wanting to take out even the last full of whatever, they have remaining. So very insightful. Why does everybody write the same thing? Gandhi, Metcalf, Macaulay, no, Charles Metcalf, Gandhi, and then you see even this colonial officers, many of them. Now, to the credit of the British, they largely left many of the villages alone to handle their own ways of functioning and system. Did they break it down? Yes, they did break it down by bringing in, land reform laws, and bringing in, a lot of other such, which they called quote unquote reforms. But actually, it broke down the very system that these villages were organically handling in their own way and own, kind of approach to it. But did they try to impose any kind of, setup that was politically alien to them? No, they did it through the economic way by looting them, but they left those systems to a large extent. Only towards the end, when you see they had totally broken down, Lord Ripon comes up with his minutes of, local governance. There also, he mentions that in his minutes, I think it's the 1882 minutes that Lord Ripon brings in. And in that document, he says that local governance or their own traditional institutions, which they call panchayats, they need to be, supported and quote unquote empowered, given power to. And because they are the most suitable system for political education, because we can have many bright people coming out from these villages who can later on contribute to the country politically, and also so it should begin from the villages. And the second thing is, of course, the development and all that, which he talked about. Then now this is something which we need to ponder upon, that the British had some reason to do whatever breaking down, whatever, right till the last, point or atom of these setups, these organic setups, traditional setups, because they wanted to loot. What was the motivation for the post-independence leaders to continue that policy and to continue, looking at them from a colonial or from a foreign perspective without even trying to understand, without even trying to, even these quote unquote communist people, even they have no understanding of what these villages actually, they might, talk about labor, and they might talk about all the, things that contains in their manifesto. They're speaking up for the, underprivileged and so on and so forth. But these literally, they beat the last nail into the coffin of these institutions functioning on their own in whatever capacity they were able to still do. So this is something that one should ponder upon, that what happened after the independence. Those people had their reasons, they had to loot, so they did what they had to do. And nothing can be founded on the basis of where one is exposed to foreign, kind of viewpoints. And when you go to talk to your so-called leader, that leader looks at you from a colonial perspective, doesn't even understand your objective, considers you backward. I would also recommend to the participants that please do go through the Constituent Assembly debates, which are there in the archived form on the internet. You can look at all those wonderful debates, wonderful, brilliant minds that make a winning case for the continuity, and in fact, to let the panchayats have their autonomy, the traditional ones, instead of imposing these foreign structures which the British, machinery had quote unquote said that we will set it up. We will set it up to empower these people. And they already have the traditional mechanisms. Why are you bothered about setting it up? Because it was a power play. So these constituent assemblies are wonderful documents where many great gentlemen talk about a case for defending these very traditional institutions, even women in that constituent assembly. It was only the national quote unquote leaders and, well-known names and mainstream people who constantly call these, villages and these panchayat institutions as dens of backwardness. And, nothing can be progressive as long as these exist, like as if to say, they are some redundant organ that is, cancerous. And when they were asked what was the reason for you to say these things, who said, they had no answer. If they had a say, they were, dominant, so they could put their voice across and make sure that these voices are suppressed. But I would encourage some exercise on your end also, and go and read these Constituent Assembly debates regarding these, especially when the Hindu Code Bill is being brought up in the 1950s by B.R. Ambedkar. You have to see the kind of debates, especially in that period. So with that, I'll quickly share a few slides before I move forward. Yes, this is just a brief indicator of what I want to talk about for the next few minutes. So we have
Can
a
you do
community.
full screen, Tanya ji?
Okay. Yeah. So in the 73rd Amendment, because we are only talking about PRIs or Panchayati Raj institutions in this, the local rural governance. So I'm looking at the 73rd Amendment, which talks about setting up the Panchayati Raj institutions. So in 1952, Jawaharlal Nehru takes out this community development program. You can look it up on the internet. It's not possible for me to bring out everything that can be brought up here, but I can give you pointers. I'm sorry, yeah, I can give you pointers which can lead you to your own reading. That is how the best that is the best approach that I feel, by reading yourself and understanding instead of believing whatever I am saying, or taking whatever I say as somebody who knows about it. They are given in short bullet points. You can find it on the internet, not difficult to find. Also about the Dharma Shastras yesterday, when Nakulji had asked, the advised or recommended process is to first look at bhashyas or tikas or commentaries that have been written by renowned sages on the Dharma Shastras. Like Medha Tithi has written on the Manusmriti. Kuluka has written also on the Manusmriti. Similarly, you have Vijneshwara, writing on certain other aspects, Daya Bhag, etc. So Adi Shankaracharya has written many, bhashyas and tikas. I would recommend that the translated version, maybe Hindi or English, you can find it online of these commentaries, because these commentaries are written with that objective that it can be an easy understanding before you approach the main text. From the viewpoint of, it makes it simplified for you, that how do you develop that lens to even understand what is written in those texts in the very blunt lines that the texts mention. So that is the process that is normally followed. And apart from that, I think Chaukamba Prakashan, Gita Press, these are the initial ones that one can approach. But if you find any other, older kind of publication for commentaries and tikas, Medha Tithis and Kulukas and Vijneshwara, please go ahead and read that. Hindi first is a preference. If you are not comfortable, then you can go for the English translation. Uh, yes, so the Community Development Program in 1952 was set up by Jawaharlal Nehru, and this was an initial exercise in uh, what you can say rural governance or rural development, to be specific. Now, what was happening in this community development program, to tell you in brief, everything was being directed from the center. It was a very centralized way of functioning. The center was hearing hearsay here and there, and by their chosen representatives that they felt knew a lot about villages and what they had to say, and so on and so forth. Who is choosing them, on what basis they are being chosen, etc. There is no transparency on that. So then they set out to develop the villages from sitting in the center. So the center would make their reports, and they would decide, okay, these are the issues that development needs to be done in the villages, and they would set out packages and schemes and whatever to send it. Big failure, because it was not accepted on the ground. Now villages are very self-respecting. Even now, if you go, as I said, they would prefer to do waqt ki roti izzat se kamaye, whether they are working in somebody's house or construction places, or working in sewages or etc. But they will always choose the first option of working and earning, mehnat ki kamai. So when they are given such kind of dose, or when they are told that you have to do this, and if the group of villages feels that, of village people feels that this is not what we require right now, and this is not the arms that we seek, you give us work, we will work, and we will be self-dependent. So basically they rejected whatever, this center-oriented directions were being given to them. And so after a few months itself, probably a year, this CDP was a complete failure. And was it taken very well by the leaders, who think no, it was not taken. And then you see, for the next 40 years, you are only having committees and committees that are giving their reports. Multiple committees, I think around 9 to 10 committees. LM Singhvi, then there was Ashok Mehta, Balwant Rai Mehta, and so on and so forth. There were multiple committees that got set up. And what happened after the reports were submitted? Almost nothing. They were just sitting on it. So it was basically a delaying tactic, because nobody wants power to go into the hands of the common people. You see that even happening in many states where the state, the police is not under the state, or the police is not found. There's a model police bill, by the way, that has been floated, and how to give autonomy, how to make the police autonomous, because they are also functioning on a colonial process, or diktat. It's still following that same. Why did they found this police? You still have 1861, 1872. Even the judicial proceedings are based on many 1800 kind of systems that have been set up. Why were these processes set up? We all know what objective the colonial machinery had while setting all these up, and it still continues till today. And that's why there is, a rising disconnect between these people who are supposed to protect and give us justice and the people. So it's not our system. It is a system that is continuing from an oppressive period of rule that was there. So this delaying tactic with these multiple committees, there was no proper consultative approach, no participative approach that was taken with the traditional panchayats or from the village, proper village representatives who would come, who the village people had put across as representatives. All these things were largely missing, but the committees were being set up. I will not like to go into the details. I think everybody is uh, intelligent enough to deduce why these things happen in the first place. Then comes the 64th Amendment Bill, which is during the same tenure of Rajiv Gandhi. It meets stiff opposition from the states. They wanted the local governance under their control. And then this went on for a long period of time until it was, given into all these demands. Any participative approach from the village representatives or the traditional systems in place? Big question mark in that. And in the end, it is given in the 73rd Amendment as per whatever oppositions were, put to it for reasons that you can read up. 64th Amendment bill, you can read it on the internet and you can, make sense by yourself why it was done. Now coming to the reason that these PRIs were said to be set up. Now, in the DPSP, in the Constitution of India, the Directive Principles of State Policy, Article 40 talks about organizing village panchayats and endowing them with powers of self-government. As a consequence, PRIs had been denied resources, responsibilities, and powers. Why am I saying so? I will go into detail in the next couple of minutes. So what does the Constitution agree upon? Mandatory setting up of Panchayati Raj institutions, holding periodic elections to these bodies, provision of a reservation for weaker group, and audits of the PRIs. These three things, please make note of it before now I move into the understanding of how these things are problematic in the first place. Now, before I move forward, I'd like to ask the participants who are here, what are your takeaways from whatever has been presented till now? And those three provisions in the DPSP, which are called Gandhian principles. So the Constitution embodies Gandhian ideals in the DPSP. That's what it says. Like it talks about animal husbandry, the banning of the slaughter of cows, all those things are part of DPSP. But when the state has resources to implement it, it's given the power to the center and the states. When you feel you have resources to do this, then you can do it. So they can take it up as their leisure. Was this agreed to by Gandhi and other people? That is also a big question mark because it came much later. The constitution was framed much later after he passed away. Yes. So what are your takeaways in the half an hour that we have discussed? And those three provisions in Article 40, mandatory setting up of PRIs, conducting elections every 5 years, and inclusion of weaker sections. And the other thing is auditing their accounts. Your insights on this before we proceed?
Yes, anybody would like to respond to Tanya ji's question? Any insights on the particular question that she has asked, or anything else that you would like to share at this point? You can unmute yourself, or you could also post it in the chat box. Varsha ji, Suresh ji,
Yeah,
Sanjodhika ji.
can you repeat the question?
Yes, Varshaji, I'm saying that whatever we have gone through right now in this half an hour, जो भी slides or जो भी points I have presented, what is your takeaway or any other participant's takeaway? And the second thing is, जो आर्टिकल 40 में 3 मेन प्रोविजंस है कि इलेक्शंस होने चाहिए, पीआरआई सेटअप होने चाहिए, वीकर सेक्शंस उसमें इंक्लूड होने चाहिए और ऑडिट ऑफ पीआरआईज रेगुलरली होने चाहिए. Any takeaways that any of the participants have on these? What do you think? What is your insights on this?
Yes, Varsha ji, you can respond now.
My net is not working properly.
Okay.
Just a minute. I will type.
Okay. Sure. Yes, anybody else? Jayashri ji, Jyoti Rani ji, JB More, Deepak ji, Kajal ji, Raj ji, Virendra sir. Any of you would want to respond?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
Actually, somewhere I was connecting this to current position, like current situation, where in village elections, the reservation is given to women. So actually, there also I found that somewhere, maybe I am wrong, but I found that the patriarchal society always believe that they are more powerful, and women are empowered, but somewhere they are the backbone. So what they did, they nominated their wives and sisters and daughters in the election, and then when they won the election actually, and they told them to sit at home and they were working. So it was my observation somewhere. And I would like to include here that when madam has mentioned that panchayati raj and all the mandatory situations like PRI hoga and reservation for the weaker sections and all. So there I connected this to separation of powers, which is, as madam told, key three tier government, like, so it is panchayati raj, that is village, and then it comes to state level, and then it comes to central or union level. So I connected this to the present scenario, and I found that whatever steps taken, it was for the welfare. Somehow the foresightedness was there, but the implementation and the execution was not so proper, because somewhere, as madam told, the corruption and opposition is always there, and they are not supporting. So for the welfare of weaker section, or the for the strengthening of this you know uh, that government system, all have to come together. Actually, they have to support each other, but always there have been a dispute and all, and that's why it could not happen as it was foresighted. So it was my takeaway. I hope I have taken it rightly. Madam, you can correct me if I am somewhere wrong.
No worries, Yashiji. I'm just taking inputs, nothing right or wrong here. There is no.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes. Anybody else would like to? If not, then we can proceed. Yeah, Jyoti Rani.
Madam.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Jyoti Rani.
Yes, ma'am. Regarding this Article 14 mandatory establishment of PRIs, I just want to share something. As already I have mentioned in this FDP itself, madam, that I am staying in an area which comes under sixth schedule of the Constitution, and it is a area dominated by one of the major tribe in Assam called Bodo community, madam. So regarding this Sikh schedule area, like we don't have the institutions like PRIs, or like 73rd Amendment is not that much applicable here because they have their own types of self-rule. I mean, like in the name of VVCDC, they have, that is Village Development Council. for the villages actually. So in that kind of area, what and wherever like I have just started studying or knowing about their customary laws, madam, because most of the tribal communities they have their own customary laws. And while I was going through their customary laws, most of the communities they have their own governance system, as we have discussed in our earlier classes also. So whatever the decisions and whatever the governance system they need, usually that kind of setup was already been there among the community according to their customary laws. So whenever like this concept has come that mandatory establishment of certain kind of rules, and while I was going through and trying to know about the society, there is a major clash actually or kind of conflict of interest that basically arises regarding this mandatory establishment of certain institutions and whatever they have been following through their customs. So in that case, and already I have told you, madam, because six schedule area, as we all know, six schedule area, they have their own rule and they are having BCBC, which is not on the basis of selection, but on the not on the basis of election, but on the basis of selection. They used to select their representative till today, madam. So in that case, mandatory rule, or I mean, like making it mandatory to establish PRIs or PRIs institution in those areas or these kind of areas. uh, I have little doubt. Why? Because, madam, because I can see the contradiction regarding their governance system and regarding the belief and faith of the people, whether they will depend on their those customary institutions or they will go with the uh, constitutionally given rules and institutions. That's what I have observed, madam.
Jyoti Rani ji, very interesting observation. My following question to that would be, what kind of social injustice do you see being carried out by these customary laws and, with regards to women and, other things? What is the social oppression that you see happening through these?
Madam, suppose while I've said about suppose dispose sorry kind of uh, dispute system if it happens among the villagers, so any kind of dispute if among the villagers it arises, so they have their own village committee, it's among that particular people and among that in that particular area. So before going to the even to the legal system or other like institutions, those village people they used to gather together to resolve those issues that basically arises among the villagers. Maybe, madam, if which we consider to be certain private matters, even if it comes regarding the notion of dispute even, or maybe divorce case even, but like that kind of things that I have seen, they used to proceed to the village people first, which they have already. So that kind of issues, they are more comfortable and they are more dependent or they are more secured actually. They feel like resolving those issues among themselves than to go through the constitutionally ruled or constitutionally provided norms and legal practices, madam. That's what I have seen.
Why do they prefer it? Have you ever asked them, why do you go? Would you like to go somewhere else? Have you ever had such discussions with them at any point? Have you spoken to the women in these tribal areas?
What kind of discussion, madam? Sorry.
Like, why do they prefer going to these traditional, bodies for dispute resolution? And why, what is the say of the women in these matters? Have you ever had any discussions with these people?
Madam, actually, I have a near member at my home who works with me. She belongs to the Bodo community. She herself faced this kind of a situation and she is now separated from her husband. So many a times what I have seen regarding property also they have issues, madam, because customary law doesn't usually give that property rights to women. Though we say that tribal community is very much empowered or in case of that open, but in certain communities, their customary law itself, they do not give them that right to property. So, like when she used to come and when I asked her and talked to her, first of all, that very much patriarchal system, it is very much operationalized in those society. But when I used to ask to her, like after leaving her husband, because it was a kind of domestic violence, madam, and she came from her husband place. She started staying with her parents here. But after a certain period of time, her parents also, like, I mean, their brothers basically, they were not also comfortable with them. Then I asked her actually, so what to do the next time? Will you go legally or what? So they she preferred that गांव के लोगों ने बात किया, हमारा गांव में लेखा लिखी ऐसा हुआ है, रिटर्न में कुछ हुआ है, तो ऐसा ऐसा दिया है. So when I asked her like whether you will feel that whether whatever the decision they have given, suppose if it is altered somewhere, तो उन लोगों का कहना ऐसा होता है कि मैडम नहीं, हमारे गांव में ऐसा ही होता है, विलेजर्स लोग हमारा विटनेस होता है और हमारा विलेज का जो बॉडी होता है वही डिसाइसिव फैक्टर्स होता है. So like they prefer resolve those issues among themselves only, because going to any legal system or like outside their villages, they feel it to be more painful or like maybe there is an issue of like financial condition also, क्योंकि मतलब जाने से ये सब legal system में जाने से also they need to have to bear a kind of cost. लेकिन गांव में उन लोगों का क्या होता है मैडम, एक मिनिमम, सपोज इन देयर सोसाइटी व्हाट आई हैव सीन, लाइक गांव में उन लोगों का होता है कि कुछ खिला देने से, या दे हैव देयर ओन लोकल राइस बियर्स एंड ऑल, यही होता है उन लोगों का, जहाँ पे कॉस्ट भी अमाउंट इज ऑल्सो वेरी लेस अकॉर्डिंग टू देम. एक है कि सिक्योरिटी, then that feeling of like togetherness with the villagers, madam. Then secondly, the cost that they need to bear. These are certain reasons, maybe what I have felt through my conversation, like with her.
So points to understand here is that now about this property related matters, I'll first of all like to bring a perspective into this, that land first of all was never a commodity to be sold. It was always owned by the Hindu united family. This is how it has always been traditionally also during the monarchy, and I think it's only during the British and the Mughal period, mostly during the British, that it became an object to be sold. So here you have one perspective where land is supposed to be a community owned, kind of a, I would say resource. Let's use that word. So when you talk about distributing property amongst different members, there is a particular land that caters to, or one second, let me just silence these notifications. So land is the one that is sustaining a particular family or clans of families. The other point coming to what kind of resources are given to the daughter when she's married, that is one thing I would like to understand. The second thing, that even in various texts, I think even in our own legal framework, till a long time, I think till 2005 2006, property was not given, but there was Stridhan, there was a lot of movable properties, lot of money, etc. that was to be. Why it was not separated, the family owned resources, is because there are 10 other members who are dependent on that. And so this perspective has to be looked in, because you're talking about the tribal areas which is still following their customary laws. So I don't know how land is looked at. We're coming off the modern, kind of perspectives, and the kind of what you call progressive kind of moves that come in. I don't know how commodified land has become now. But what was looked at is that as compared to one person, how does 10 other people survive if that land is broken up into 10 pieces and given away? So the same thing happened in the Gaunkari system. Now we have to look at the other mechanism here. What was given to her when she was married? What is the Stridhan that was given to her when she decided to leave him? Domestic violence is never acceptable. It is something that is non-negotiable, non-justifiable. She took the right decision. What was the Sridhan that was given to her? What was the kind of movable property or movable assets that were given to her? Her parents taking care of her, at one point they could not. Was it because they themselves could not survive? They were not able to take the burden anymore. That's why they became a little off towards her. The other point has to be looked at, that whether, there was some issue that happened between. Why did they agree to keep her first, and then afterwards, she started feeling a little odd there? Was it her own perspective? So there are many dynamics to this that have to be understood before we just straight away. By the way, I like to tell you a colonial law which talks about, they say, Indians are obsessed with sons. I would like to bring to the notice this Dalhousie's doctrine of lapse. I think many of you must have heard about it. Dalhousie's doctrine of lapse was basically a land usurping process. So he made this doctrine that if any family does not have a male heir or a son, or somebody to take over, male, then their property will be lapsed upon the death of the male member. It would not go to the women. So this property, I think Rani Jhansi also, that's why she adopted a son from one of her relatives or somebody in order to avoid this legislation. So was this something that came normally from the Indians, or was it imposed on them from top? But we don't know that this is why, this could be one of the reasons why they preferred a male child at that point. Second point is about the land reforms that took place. Now, at this point, I'd like to recommend a book that you would probably like to read to understand this. It's called Dowry Murder. Dowry Murder, yes, a cultural. The author is Veena Talwar Oldenburg. Dowry Murder. You can just look this up. And she will give you a whole breakdown of how these quote unquote land reforms that said that, whoever auctions and whoever, is the biggest bidder for a certain piece of land, riots, Rawats, RYOTS, basically the ones who had land, how they could get their own pieces of individual land from the community owned land. So on and so forth, they called it as reforms. So we are giving you private property. Did the people want it? Why would the Britishers be concerned about giving private property to people? Because they wanted more money out of it. So did the people want it? Was it opposed? It's a history in itself. The people were not interested in getting their personal riots or personal, pieces of land, the riot system. So do read this. It was implemented nevertheless, this so-called land reforms, riot system. And what happened as the outcome was that at this point, because the land tax was so high, almost 90% in certain states, that people did not have anything left. And here also you have to see the monetary aspect that comes in. Before the British came in, every tax was paid in kind. So whatever produce you produced at that particular season or year, out of that, a particular percentage in kind has to be given to the king or even the Mughal period to a certain extent. But the British come in and they say, we don't have any need for your, wheat and your rice and this, humko nahi chahiye. Because most of the time they were busy funding wars somewhere, or they were, sending goods to some war-inflected areas. Plantations unke kai jagah pe the. So they were more bothered about currency. So they then tell the farmers that from now on, you will pay your tax in money. We don't want in kind. Did the farmers agree to this? They were not at all in agreement, but then who cares in the colonial period? So it was implemented. Now they took out an average. Every year or every 5 years, what is the average tax that you used to pay in kind? And no, I mean, how much you used to pay in kind? They would then take out the monetary value of it. This is the average. Now they took that as a standard benchmark. Now this is also continued in today's economic policy. You must see standard benchmark, whatever is taken out. And they were told that every year now you will pay this much money. So they said, how is it possible? What if we don't produce that much at that point? I said, not my problem. Then you sell your land. You give your land to us. We will give to somebody else who can give us better rent or better currency in that. That is how they started losing land. Now, how do you protect your land? How do you give that 90% tax? Because you have to survive. You're not going to commit suicide by, agreeing to this thing. Then they realized that they have weddings also to take care of their daughters. They have, so then how do you make up the deficit for that? Which was, the tax was just increasing 90%, 80%, whatever. Whereas in England, it was 15%, by the way, 20%. But so then they'll start look at alternative opportunities where when you get married, then we want this much amount of money from the bride because our whole family is now, in a crisis situation. We cannot manufacture more land. We cannot manufacture more produce. This moves on to a dowry system, which becomes exploitative. Earlier, it was a gift system. You give it by your own free will. And every family wants to send their daughter, by the way, not as a beggar. They want to give her some good stuff that she can, stay there with respect, and she can use that if there is some problem. So they used to send her with all domestic goods that she can use for herself. And they would also give gifts to her, and in monetary or in, some jewelry and so on and so forth. It's also mentioned in the Arthashastra that this is supposed to be given. Now, when she goes there, when this becomes exploitative, and then what happens is families are now struggling. So those who are marrying their daughters are also struggling. The men, those who are getting married are also struggling. So what happens is then it gives to a pratha of dowry taking, then, women getting frustrated, killing themselves, or they are being killed, or they don't want daughters in the first place. Then you have Dalhousie's law also that comes in doctrine. So you see, when one tries to understand history and tries to understand why certain practices took a very ugly form, what exactly were the the situations that they were functioning in? If it is continuing till today, then that is a problematic thing. There's no problem. But then you have to also go into the reasons as why the society is behaving in such a manner in today's times also. Is it because they're not getting support from the state machinery, or their own way they are not able to get employment? Or one has to take a very sympathetic and empathetic view to everything that you see. If you are really bothered about solutions, you are really bothered about doing something for the society, please don't look at a particular gender as a villain and a particular gender as a victim perpetually. This is a very Western notion of looking at things. If you cloud yourself with these prejudices and biases, you will only see problems, you will only see villains, you will always see victims. That is not the eye to look at any kind of issue if you are really concerned about people and situations. And you can't be concerned about one particular part of a society and just totally smash another part of the society. That is now not how a healthy society functions. So how do these things evolve? What is the frequency of it? How do you look at it? These are the what is the solutions that can come up organically? Do you think a society enjoys doing these things? Don't they feel any kind of remorse or guilt? It's not like that. Nobody is rakshasas moving around in our society. So I'm just making a case here that we all have grown up in so-called secular, progressive, modern cities, or even those who come from villages, of course, have a different understanding. But we should not cloud our judgments based on what we read, what narratives are passed on, and so on and so forth. We need to decolonize in the true way. We have to understand our people's problems with a little empathy and sympathy, the kind of situations they have gone through, and what kind of mechanisms they have been forced to take up. Like I'll tell you, during the partition period, you must have seen that in, partition stories, when the Sikhs, when their daughters were being attacked, the daughters themselves offered their necks to their fathers and to their brothers to be chopped off with a sword. The fathers and brothers, and they did it. Did they want to do it? Even now, their souls, they shiver when they want to, anybody asks them. But they did it because they don't want their daughters to be raped and mutilated and paraded on the ground. They will die a death of, like Johar used to happen. The daughters themselves came forward. We don't want to go into these hands. Please, relieve us right now. Many of them had to think, would you call these people villains? Would you call these people? They tried to save them as much as they could. When they could not, these very women offered that, as Johar used to happen, etc. And you cannot call them as villains. You cannot call them as, let them be. They could have, maybe, somebody could have got married to them. So they could have had better lives. Please look at the situation. Nobody is looking to kill their daughters and their sons daughters and wives and sisters and all that. This is not a particular answer to Judy Rani ji. She made very valid points and very, very objective analysis, and I really liked it. I'm just giving a perspective that I have understood over the years. That when you look at your own people's problems, you have to look at, not brand them and prejudice them by this is only their mentality, this is how they are, these are Rakshasas, these are this. I think this is a colonial narrative which is still continuing. There are problems in every society. Don't they have problems in so-called developed societies? Horrible problems, horrible, just read about it. Similarly, in our society also, there would be problems. But what is the reason behind it? How do you get over it? How do you make sure that, this is not repeated? Why does this woman still want to go through the traditional setup? Why is she not interested? Because she knows that when judiciary steps into it, it takes a very Vikrit form. How many of us want to go to the courts? How many of us want? We dread it ourselves. Police stations, courts, and hospitals. These are three things that even a educated, well-off person doesn't want to go and visit. So why to talk about these people who are getting accessible, easy, cheap justice, and that too, which they are satisfied with it. And the people are supporting them as much as they can. Land being a community-owned thing, land is bhumi is mata. It is supposed to take care of you, and you cannot sell it. It's not, you can't sell your mother. In traditional society, that's how it is viewed, and the whole family is dependent on it. So you can't go about cutting this into pieces and giving, so and so. That there are other mechanisms which you give in movable properties and money, etc. If that's not being given, then that's a problem. And what is the reason behind it? How can it be sorted out? Why do they resort to? Nobody wants to throw their daughter on the street and make her homeless. So I have understood one thing from all the books that I have read and from people who are really concerned and genuinely concerned and want to give an answer to this. They have always suggested that one looks at everything from an unbiased, unprejudiced, and a little empathetic view to everything that you see. It might look grotesque and horrorful to you to see at the first thing, and you might, but you have to go into the details. That's where the mehnat is. So that is one thing that I wanted to make before I go into this. I think I'll take another 5 or 10 minutes, Nidhi ji, before I wrap up for today.
Sure. We also have Varsha ji's question in the chat box, which we can take up towards the end. Why few people opposed Panchayati Raj during Rajiv Gandhi's regime?
Yes, Varsha ji, as I mentioned the 64th Amendment, and the states basically opposed because they wanted the governance to be under them. They don't want to let go of their vote banks, their power structure of society, and they wanted it under, just like the police is under the government. It doesn't have autonomy. It's still functioning as a colonial machinery. So they opposed it. Rajiv Gandhi had to give in, and then in the end, you can see what is happening right now. I'll just quickly go through the other parts of today's presentation before. Now, 3 things that one has to look at before those 3 provisions that are given in Article 40 is what I would like to address before moving forward. Now, you see the narrative that is passed on in today's times. If you Google, if you're preparing for IAS and UPSC and, all these so-and-so things, and also when you are studying political theory and so on, the narrative is always that these traditional bodies, which are, panchayats, they are the villains. So always there's a branding of one villain and there's a branding of one victim. And then the whole narrative will move forward. So yes, वर्षा जी, हिंदू कोड बिल का कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली का डिबेट्स है. मैं आपको लिंक भेज दूंगी archive.org पे. उसमें जो आर्ग्यूमेंट्स थे to the Hindu code bill, that also, one should read. It's a study in itself कि क्यों उन्होंने बोला कि ये हिंदू कोड बिल प्रॉब्लम है. अभी तक प्रॉब्लमैटिक है, अभी तक लोग अपोज कर रहे हैं, पढ़े लिखे लोग भी. सो नहीं सुना गया, इसको जबरदस्ती पार्ट्स में इम्प्लीमेंट किया है. दैट इज अ डिफरेंट डिबेट ऑल टुगेदर, बट इट इज पीपल आर स्टिल हैविंग प्रॉब्लम्स विद इट इवन टुडे. अब इसमें क्या बोला जाएगा कि जो आदमी है, मेन है, वही अपोज कर रहे हैं हिंदू कोड बिल, बाकी औरतों को कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. this is the argument and you're supposed to take it. आपने देखा है आदमियों को सड़कों पे उतरते हुए, आपने देखा है उनको क्या कहते हैं, there are many women also who are talking about it. So we don't read, we don't do a Purv Paksh, we don't do a, you know, Uttar Paksh, we don't do anything. We just take as it is pushed into our, because in our minds we believe that one gender and one community is the problem. ये खत्म हो जाए तो सब ठीक हो जाएगा. So that is not how the way, and the you know, the bodies that are supposed to make these changes and reforms and amendments, they get away. उनका काम आसान हो जाता है कि ये इसमें पड़े रहेंगे, हमको सवाल नहीं पूछेंगे. So this is how it works. I'm telling you in a very blunt manner. This is the narrative. Now you look at the narrative at the traditional panchayats also and to the government constitutional panchayats. What is the narrative that you will always read when you go on the internet? What is the problem that is plaguing these constitutional democratic quote unquote local government bodies? सबसे पहले तो आपको बोलेंगे कि lack of support staff नहीं है, you know, इसमें आप देखेंगे भरे पड़े होंगे staff if you go to see. Staff नहीं है, बहुत सारे गवर्नमेंट के प्रोग्राम्स क्लैश होते हैं एक दूसरे के साथ, क्या कहते हैं, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के चैलेंजेस हैं, डेवोल्यूशन नहीं हो रहा है, स्टेट जो है वो पावर नहीं देना चाहता है लोकल गवर्नेंस को. इसमें लोगों का क्या क्या कर सकते हैं उसमें? व्हाट कैन पीपल डू अबाउट ऑल दीज प्रॉब्लम्स? हु इज सपोज्ड टू रिजॉल्व ऑल दीज थिंग्स? देन दे विल से देयर इज नो सपोर्ट फ्रॉम द विलेज पीपल. हम तो करना चाहते हैं पर वो नहीं. आप चाहे तो आप 74th अमेंडमेंट इम्पोज कर सकते हैं, पर आप ये सब चीजें नहीं करना चाहते बिकॉज यू डोंट हैव द पॉलिटिकल विल टू डू इट. If the state wants, it can do anything it wants. But if it doesn't want, then it will put the blame on people who have nothing to do in this. तो आपको बोलेंगे सपोर्ट स्टाफ नहीं है, भैया हम कुछ नहीं, विलेज के लोग आलसी होते, आते ही नहीं है काम करने के लिए, क्या करें, हम इनको रिक्रूट करना चाहते हैं, नहीं आते. पर मनरेगा फिर आप क्यों निकाल रहे हैं जब आपको पता है कि कामचोर लोग हैं. The other thing is they'll talk about creation of parallel bodies. ये जो पैरेलल बॉडीज है ना, बड़ी प्रॉब्लमेटिक है. अब कौन है ये पैरेलल बॉडीज? दिस ट्रेडिशनल पंचायत सिस्टम. ये जो है ना, ये काम नहीं करने दे रहे हैं. नहीं तो हम तो बहुत काम करना चाह रहे हैं. अब क्यों नहीं काम करने दे रहे हैं आपको? आप तो स्टेट है, आपके पास पुलिस है, आपके पास मशीनरी है that you can break them down. How come they are not breaking down? Because they have got community support. Your vote bank will be you know in आपका वोट बैंक डामाडोल हो जाएगा अगर आप इनको हटाने की कोशिश करेंगे. क्यों सपोर्ट करते हैं इन ट्रेडिशनल पंचायत को? हैव यू एवर ट्राइड टू आस्क द पीपल व्हाई आर दे हैप्पी विद इट? व्हाट इज योर लैकिंग इन दिस? बट नो, देयर विल बी नो सच स्टडी ऑन दिस. सम गुड माइंडेड पीपल विल डू, बट दे आर वेरी रेयर एंड मिलता नहीं है उनको स्पेस अपना बात बोलने के लिए. तो बोलेंगे often parallel bodies are created for supposedly speedy implementation and greater accountability. However, there is little evidence to show that these parallel bodies don't show partisan politics, corruption, elite capture. These are just words that are thrown around. मतलब एविडेंस नहीं है तो आप निकालिए एविडेंस, जाके उसमें रिसर्च करिए, जाके उसमें निकालिए एविडेंस. how on which basis are you saying there is little evidence? But it is given because nobody bothers to read, nobody is going there to ask, nobody is bothered to read any good work that is done on this. So Jyoti Rani ji has given her answer here. Is it it's not first of all election oriented, it's selection oriented. There is a majority community, they come together and they form the justice because it's chosen by the people only select them. Who are these? Now when you talk about these questions, why are these people supporting this? हमारे लोग हैं, हमारी बिरादरी है, वो देते हैं, हम ठीक है उससे, हमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. Why are women also okay with it? Why are people okay with it? Women have the option. So many women NGOs are there. They can go and approach. They can take them to court for free and get it done. Who is stopping them? Do you think the father or the brother or the husband is catching them and keeping them in the house? You make a call to 100 number, they will come. So you cannot just say that women, at any point they are afraid. हाँ, बाहर जाएंगी. Nowadays women NGOs can give you education also. They can give you a job also. ऐसा नहीं है कि you are MOOC or mute or this kind of thing. You can get it. So why not make use of this? Who is stopping you? Leave, catch a bus, go to these NGOs. They will come and pick you up, in fact, from your own house. So everything is provided to you. What makes you not? Now then the same narrative and thing will come in. There's no basis to it at all, that, they are not allowed to go. This is not a period of where women are kept tied up in houses, so on and so forth. So this thing, now the next thing will come. For example, look at Khap Panchayats. They act as a parallel body in different parts of the countries and encroaches into the functions of Panchayati Raj institution. Now, how can a community-owned institution where the constitution gives you the rights to form associations, right? There is the article in the fundament. One of the fundamental rights is to form associations. So they are forming associations, and they are people's association. People have chosen them. They are coming together. If you don't want to call them panchayat bodies, call them as people associations. They have the right to form and to assemble and talk about issues. No problem about that. Now, how can these small bodies, which have absolutely no say, they have no capture over the bureaucratic machinery or the political machinery or whatever, how can they kind of take over and encroach and tell the government bodies that you can't function? It is something that is very difficult to understand. These unpad, so-called unpad people just bolte hain. Now look at, you have to catch the very important points in this narrative. Parallel bodies usurp the legitimate space of Panchayati Raj institutions. Who has given you this legitimate space? PRIs. आपको लोगों ने दिया क्या? आपने अपने आप से decide किया, sitting in your cushy chambers and deciding that PRIs have to be mandatory setup when they are already there traditionally. So you bring in the constitutional amendment and say this is law. What about the natural law? What about the law that people are following? What about who gets to say which law is better and bigger than the other one? Then you say it's democracy. Then you say people have the ultimate say. So when people are giving their legitimacy to these kind of bodies, then who are you to say that our legitimate space is being taken up by these parallel bodies? So are they illegal? Are they come up by their own? Don't they have the sanction of the people? So these parallel bodies usurp the legitimate space of Panchayati Raj institutions and demoralize them. So these parallel traditional bodies are demoralizing these great constitutional bodies by virtue of their superior resource endowments. Now, do you understand what this line is saying? It is saying कि ये जो government bodies है PRIs, I mean, I find it funny, I find it hilarious to even read these kind of narratives and not understand what is being told. So they are saying ये जो parallel bodies है ना, traditional bodies, ये demoralize कर देते हैं हमको, क्योंकि देखो इनके पास कितने resources हैं, लोग इन्हीं में अपना trust देते हैं, इन्हीं में पैसा लगाते हैं, इन्हीं को support करते हैं, इन्हीं को cooperation देते हैं, ये वो, इनके पास बहुत resources हैं, हमारे पास नहीं है, तो हम ना demoralize हो जाते हैं. कौन गर्दन से पकड़ के लोगों को उनके पास लेके जा रहा है, उनको resources देने के लिए? And this is something that you have to read from your own perspective and understand. That would you like to swallow this narrative as it is, or would you like to give? They cannot be conflicting, opposing opinions. That these are uneducated, patriarchal, kind of keeping people down, or क्या कहते हैं उसको ये करते हैं, और फिर लोग उन्हीं के पास जा रहे हैं. That people are stupid, and then on the other hand you say we want to keep a democracy. So first make the people sensible, to choose government bodies than these traditional bodies. How can you have a democracy at the same time say people are stupid? So dismissing the own choice of people by saying they're stupid, or they are afraid, or they don't this, that, and the other. No, village people are very smart. Just talk to somebody, go and you will come to know what kind of knowledge they possess. And they know what is good for them. That is what scares these, upper members. Now, see the problem in the setup of the very Panchayati Raj institutions. Everything is coming from top. We will decide what kind of Panchayati Raj institutions will be set up. On whose thing? On Balwant Rai Mehta and Ashok Rai Mehta. Have they consulted these people? Have they talked to them? Have they come to a... No, because you consider them below your, level of intellectual wisdom. तो आपने डिसाइड किया हमको पढ़ने लिखने से ये सब हमको समझ में आया, ये होना चाहिए, आपने उसको इम्पोज किया. Are people going to accept it? Why should I accept if somebody comes to my house and in my place and says, no, we will now do this, now you have to come here only. You will not form your own, understanding or community. The initial response is reject. So people automatically said that this is not, and they wanted to talk. But nobody was concerned. And then after that, you talk about finance commission will give them finance. Election commission will carry out election. The audit bodies of the center and state will carry out audits, and it will only be reported to these state and center. Village people are not even got to look at their audit reports. इनको क्या पता है? Then you will make sure elections are mandatorily happening here, and then you will ensure that social justice is also taking place in this. Everything, governance is taken a back burner. Everything else is conflated into this particular thing. So everything you are telling them what they have to do. It is nothing coming from them. So automatically, now you see that there is a financial hardship that they're facing since many decades. It's continuing till today. There is a decision-making, problem that is happening. They don't take their own decisions. That's why no development is happening. Whatever decisions are being imposed on them, it's of no use to them. So farmers are committing suicide. There is no rural industries that is taking place without private intervention. There is absolutely no acceptance, no understanding. Now, I will give you another example apart from this. What are the problems plaguing panchayats are multiple. Go and take a look on the internet, you will find a big list. And this continues since many decades. I don't have to go into details also. But the question here is that the narrative that is being passed on, that what is the problem? These parallel bodies are the problem. What are the problem? People are, incompetent. People are stupid. People don't know. People are fearful. People follow religion. People follow this, that, all colonial narratives. So it goes there. Social injustice ho raha hai, it's the same atrocity literature that you heard at one point. Ki Indian people can't govern themselves, so Queen has to take over. It is continuing. It's a power play. It's a vote bank thing. So now I'll give you some examples of khaks. I'll keep it for tomorrow. I think that is what we are covering, traditional panchayats tomorrow. I won't cover it today, but I'll give you very compelling examples of how these traditional panchayats all over the country are functioning and how they are actually the development leaders. What kind of decisions they are giving, which you will never hear in the press.
Tanya ji, just interrupting you, giving you a time check. It's 8:12. We need to wind up by 8:30 because I have to leave for somewhere.
Yeah.
So I hope we can wind up by 8.
2 minutes. Yeah, another 2 minutes I'll be done. Yeah. So that is what I was just saying, that we carry on this traditional panchayat discussion. What are their pros and cons? And in the next session, which is tomorrow, which is focusing on these. And I will give you an example of the unsaid, things about them, which other people have brought up, but it would be interesting to know. And then you can make a comparison between the two. None of these panchayats, when you ask them, okay, what is the problems plaguing you, these traditional panchayats, they will never ever say that, ye log hame demoralize karte hain, inko hatana chahiye. No, they will talk about exact problems that need to be. We should be given, this thing, we should be given that, the people want this, the people, unke paas lekha jokha hota hai, ki log unke paas kya samasyaएं leke aate hain. They are very, very meticulous. Now, one incident in history that you should look at, I always repeat, the Aund experiment of 1937-38 in Maharashtra, the Bhudan movement. See the generosity of the kings of those times, or the people, and how they actually effectuate Gandhi's visions of autonomous self-governing villages. These two, Aund, AUNDH, Aund experiment of Maharashtra in 1939, and Bhudan movement. These two, they were models that Nehru could follow, but he chose not to follow. The other thing I would give you is the Aruna Roy movement. It is called the Mazdoor Kisan Sangh movement in 1993-94. That is when RTI comes into play. The RTI ki maang jo hai wo usse shuru hoti hai. The bureaucratic machinery that is there in the village were not providing any kind of audit reports to the villagers, and there were heavy corruption. The villagers come together under Aruna Roy, and they demand that give us the kacha receipt. We don't want the pakka, so give it to us, we will read it. then the villagers sit down and read it, and they understand what kind of बहुत बड़ा movement होता है. It's called the Kisan Mazdoor Sangh movement, 1993. Aruna Roy. If you just put these keywords, Aruna Roy, Kisan Mazdoor Sangh movement, and then how it led to RTI later on, you will see how smart these people are, that they chose to revolt against this system. That is how the Champaran thing happened with Gandhi ji. That is how, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel ka, it happened in Wardha. Later on, they did the Satyagrah. Who is helping them is the village. That's why Gandhi had a lot of respect, because he had worked with them extensively. And so did Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. He also came from a village. So these are some things that you can note down and read up before we approach tomorrow's class. I think that's where I will stop today. Thank you.
We can take questions, Tanya ji.
Yes, any questions, queries, anybody would like to bring in insights, we can discuss quickly.
Yes, I think Varsha ji, in response to the question that she had raised, she wrote in the chat box. So Varsha ji, I hope your question is answered.
Yeah, she had mentioned already that I asked about Hindu Code Bill.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, great, great. Any questions from any other participants? Deepak ji, Jayashri ji, Poonam ji, Raj sir, Sanjogita ji, Suresh ji, Virendra sir, any questions from any one of you? Okay, I think even if you cannot think of questions for this moment, I think Varsha ji, are you trying to say something?
Exactly what I wanted to know about that. In spite of all these problems and issues, there the percentage of women reservation in Panchayati Raj is on the paper, or is it a reality? What I read about that, India is there having the highest percentage all over in the world, particularly in local governance.
Yes, I think to a certain extent, this is also a very nuanced discussion, Varsha ji. What is the reason that women are not choosing to join in? Please don't give me this argument that men do not allow them to come, or men are stopping them, or they're afraid of their husbands and fathers and brothers and so on and so forth. The women in villages are one of the most powerful, is what I have seen. They beat up people also. वो डंडा लेके निकल जाती हैं, पीटती हैं अपने बच्चों को, अपने सबको. वो ऐसा कोई उनको पकड़ के नहीं रख सकता अंदर. But when it comes to political journey, they tend to not like it. They tend to not want to enter into it only in the first place. And this is also imposed, by the way. This 33% reservation, has it come from the people, from the village people themselves? Did they ask for it? No, it is a very popular social justice notion everywhere कि औरतें नहीं हैं, औरतें घुसाओ उनको, into every field. तो औरतें चाह रही हैं क्या? आपको बोला है क्या? And is it stopped? अच्छा, क्यों 33%? 50% रखो, 50% रखिए ना. 33% ये मैजिक नंबर कहाँ से लेके आ रहे हैं? I have no understanding. 33% men होंगे, 33% women होंगे, 33% transgender होंगे. I don't know. So, is governance become a social justice project for you, or has it become an economic, social and this upliftment for what governance is there?
Yeah.
So those who are capable of carrying forward this governance machinery, they should be given a chance. Who has stopped women? Has anybody said कि ये 33% से पहले जब नहीं था तो औरतों को रोका गया था आने में? No, you had wonderful women in the freedom movement. You had wonderful women who joined after that in the political framework. They came from all sections of society. We are I think, one of the greatest civilizations that have given even presidents and prime ministers and chief ministers who have been women, long before these so-called reservations that you bring into domain. And they all came on their own bal and thumb. People chose them because they liked their way of functioning. So the question here is, are you converting governance into a social justice project? That is a different thing. It should come as a part of governance. You don't make it into a be all and whole of governance. Governance is about uplifting an entire country. And what is this magic number of 33%? उसका भी कोई logic नहीं है. And are women choosing to come in or women not choosing to come in? Please don't give this colonial narrative that women are, still in a backward position. तो आपको लाना ही नहीं चाहिए था. पहले उनका उत्थान करिए ना कि वो आगे आए, उसके बाद रिजर्वेशन दीजिए. अभी खाली रह जाएंगे तो फिर आप गवर्नेंस कहाँ से करेंगे?
Right.
तो आप नहीं करना चाहते हैं dirty work या hard work, but you just want to pass certain resolutions to sound good in the overall global space. When that drives your your aspirations, then you are a problematic leader in my eyes. I have sent Madhu Kishwar's article. She has written extensively about the 33% reservation thing, and many other women also she has quoted in that who have given their opinions. Nobody is against, nobody has ever stopped women, but you cannot impose, and you cannot brand a certain gender or community as villain and they are the ones who are stopping. So nobody would get married also in the first place. अगर ऐसा ही है, तो I mean there are multiple things. I don't even want to get into it.
Right.
But the point is that whether these seats are being filled up or not has to go into many other dynamics. उसके ऊपर भी काफी सारे research articles है which I will pull out and I will send in the group if one wants to read it. But there has to be an Indic perspective to looking at all these issues. Even Arthashastra, even Manusmriti. आप देखेंगे मनुस्मृति में तो सबसे पहले पन्ने पे लिखा है कि देवताओं का वास होता है वहां पे जहाँ पे औरतों का सम्मान होता है. अब मनुस्मृति को कितना खदेड़ा जाता है to be anti-women and so on and so forth. But if you read it from the perspective that it was actually written on, you will find, and I have read these all by myself to understand and to get different perspectives. तभी पहले गुरु हुआ करते थे बताने के लिए, and there were many women gurus also, by the way. And Mirabai also was, she was not shunned. Nobody shunned her. There was Andal. There was Lal Ded in Kashmir, a Shaivite, she was a follower. So we have never had a dearth of female saints. Do you see this replicating in other civilizations or progressive developed? You will not see. So these are some things that we need to look at from a nuanced perspective. आप अगर सोचेंगे कि आप oppressed हैं तो आपका पूरा outlook ही वैसा रहेगा. If you feel you are confident and strong enough, you will never be, So the same thing is about this marriageable age. कौन सा age है marriage करने का? वो भी एक particular community पे लागू हुआ है. By the way, other communities don't abide by this. They have their own personal laws. So this, marriageable age is another debate altogether. I'll send some articles regarding that also. Like 21 years kar diya hai. There are many discussions against it, not only by, men, there are also women who are talking. What about a poor man in a poor village who doesn't know who cannot take care of his daughters because he doesn't have employment, because the state is not providing, because अब तो सब कुछ state के ऊपर ही dependent है. आपने तो उनको कोई decision making power दिया नहीं, तो उनके पास नहीं है, खाने पीने का नहीं है, बाकी 10 member और मर जाएंगे इनका. तो you will see that they have no other option. But जैसे ही 18 या उसकी होती हैं, they choose the best person according to the समाज और बिरादरी and they marry her off, so that कम से कम वहां तो जीवित रह पाएगी, वहां तो सुरक्षित रह पाएगी. कंपल्शंस होते हैं, कोई अपनी मर्जी से किसी को फोर्सफुली नहीं फेंकता है अपने घर से. तो आपने वो उनको एम्प्लॉयमेंट दिया क्या? आपने ऐसे सिचुएशन बनाया क्या? अब वो 3 साल जो नहीं रख पा रहा है उसको, वो क्या करेगी लड़की? What will she do to survive for 3 years before she can get married off and live a respectful life? You cannot decide based on public narratives and populist opinions. And look at scientific figures कि 21 साल में मैच्योर होती हैं, फिर तो 18 साल में भी हो जानी चाहिए, फिर तो 30 साल में भी नहीं होंगी मैच्योर. आप how can you say? Behavioral psychological analysis is changing every year, every month. You cannot put a tab and say this. You have to look at other aspects, socio-political, economic, everything. What is it that drives people to get married early, especially in the lower strata, and people who are not able to provide? What will she do in those 3 years? The only things that I can understand is either she'll take to a illegal, kind of thing to support herself, or she'll probably, maybe kill herself. or maybe something will happen to her. I don't know. But जो पार्लर्स में काम करती हैं, ये करती हैं, वो क्यों कर रही हैं? सर्वाइव नहीं कर पा रही हैं. So जब आपने बाकी सब मैकेनिज्म नहीं दिया है, आप किस बेसिस पे कह रहे हैं कि 21 साल में ही इसकी शादी होनी चाहिए, उससे पहले आपको जेल में डाल देंगे? तो थोड़ा sympathetic, empathetic approach has to be towards any kind of policy issues. That is all I would like to say.
Thank you, Tanya ji, for that elaborate response. The rest of the remaining questions we will take up in tomorrow's session. So it's 8:25. We will close today's session and regroup tomorrow at 7 p.m. Tomorrow and day after, we have the last two sessions. On the last day, I'll be sharing a feedback form link with all the participants, which all of you are requested to fill so that we can disperse your certificates, and instructions for certificates will also be shared on the last day, 6th day, that is 13th of September. So see you everyone. Namaste and Shubhratri.